Good evening. I'd like to call to order this Tuesday, September 4th, 2018, regular meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We're always pleased when members of the public attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and statutes and the regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting, as many of you know, contains an opportunity for those attending to comment on items in the published agenda or of other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit time allotted to public participation, and law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We hope that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community, and thank you for attending. Now, if anyone does have an intention to speak tonight, there's a sign-up sheet outside. It's now up here, and if you'd like to speak, if you could please just come and ask for the clipboard back and sign up so that we can see how much time we have per person to speak.
Does anyone need this?
Okay. With that, Ms. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Patrick Sullivan.
Here.
Betsy Keller-Baglio.
Here.
Beth Barron.
Here.
Debbie Bromfield.
Here.
Jessica Deutsch.
Here.
Bill Hare.
Here.
Daphne Kendall.
Here.
Greg Stenkowitz.
Here.
Michelle Tuck-Ponder. Evelyn Spahn.
Here.
And our new student board member, Sam.
Here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we were moving on to item D, adoption of the minutes. We can have a motion for D1, the minutes of July 17th, 2018. Greg, and a second, Jess. Any comments on those minutes? If none, then it's an electronic vote. Still waiting? Are we good? Okay. Okay, so can we have a motion for the D2, which is the minutes of July 24th, 2018? Debbie, and a second. Daphne? Any questions or comments on the July 24th minutes? And if not, then it's an electronic vote. All set? Okay, good. And with that, we'll move on to item E, which is the board president's report. I'd like to welcome you all tonight. It's the night before the first day of school, which is a special time for many of our children, our families. It's a hopeful time of anticipation and optimism, and maybe also a little bit of fear and trepidation that a new year is starting. But we're excited about the changes that the students are going to be seeing this year, particularly at the high school, changes in the schedule that are new this year, and the start time, which was a long fought and really, welcome process that we went through over the last couple of years, and now the students will be feeling it, and I hope they will feel better this year, starting a little bit later. We're all excited about that. We're excited about the new curriculum and the changes that are coming there. We're excited about the work in equity that we've been doing over the past couple of years, which is starting to bear fruit. We're excited that homework is going to be less, not only for our freshmen, but for other classes in the high school and middle school as well. So changes have been happening over the years for our students, and that's where we like to keep our focus, because all of these board members, I think, ran and were elected focusing on what's best for our students. And so tonight, we're happy that that our Director of Guidance, Christina Donovan, is going to be speaking about the services that we provide to our students. I think especially in this time of transition, it's a stressful time for many families and many children, and so it's particularly timely that she's here tonight to explain all of the things that we are working on in order to make things better for our children. Couple of more minor issues that I'd like to bring up, but also important just the same. First is I just would like to share with the community that our business manager, Stephanie Kennedy, for the 21st year in a row, received a flawless audit by our auditors. It's not official, but you heard it here first. Yeah. And so thank you, Ms. Kennedy, for all your hard work and all you do to really set a standard of excellence. So we're very happy to have you. And the second piece of news, some of you may have seen in the because of the press release we released earlier, but we're disappointed that the referendum package that we sent to the Department of Education is still under consideration, and therefore the expected vote that we would have had on the referendum tonight will need to be postponed until the DOE comes through with a final approval. My understanding is that is based on a glut of referendum submissions that came in over the summer from some very large school districts for some very large dollar amounts. We are not the only school that is suffering under dilapidated facilities and crowded classrooms. But the downside is that we will need to postpone not only the vote tonight on our referendum, but also the date on which that we put that referendum to a vote. But we will move forward. It's part of the process, and we've been working on a long and detailed process for over a year now on this referendum, and we'll keep moving forward. So we're excited about the year. We're excited. I'm proud of this board and all of the passion and effort that they bring to reforming one of the truly great public schools in this nation to make it even better and more responsive to all of our children. And so I'm excited to look forward to another school year. I think this will be the best one ever. I really hope so. And I'm looking forward to working with you, Sam, as a representative of all the students. That's what we're all here for, and so we're excited to see you tonight as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve for your superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I want to build on what Pat said, that this is a time of optimism for our school district, and tomorrow, as he indicated, is the first day of school for our students. We have some excited and potentially nervous students at home this evening. We have some excited, potentially nervous teachers at home, perhaps some principals and superintendents, all looking forward to, and parents, all looking forward to a wonderful start tomorrow. I thought it was helpful for us to begin with a focus on students and a focus on our mission statement of preparing all children to lead lives of joy and purpose. I love this particular quote from a fellow superintendent and educational speaker, Colleen Wilcox. Teaching is the greatest act of optimism. There are issues in our world. There are problems and concerns locally, nationally, globally. As teachers, as educators, when we enter that classroom, we do so with the hope that we are changing the world one child at a time. That is the work that we do. That is the mission that drives us. That is why all of us are here. And so I personally begin this year with hope and with optimism. And a lot of that hope and optimism is grounded in the people who will be working with our children. So I begin tonight by acknowledging, thanking those who have been preparing for their arrival tomorrow. We have certainly our grounds crew and custodians who've been preparing the exterior and the interior of the buildings, getting the fields ready for the sports teams that are practicing on them already. We have our transportation department that has faithfully looked at every single route. They've ridden those routes, practice runs, to make sure they know where they're going. They've washed their buses. They are eagerly looking forward to picking up our children tomorrow morning. We have our assistants, many of whom came in over the summer to meet with the students and the parents of the students with whom they'll be working during the course of the year. Certainly we have our counselors who take time each summer to come in to help to orient students, work on their schedules. We'll be hearing more from Christina Donovan about the work of our counselors. There are our teachers. Summer is a busy time for teachers. Yes, I hope they get time to rest and relax and recharge. That's an important part of the educational process. But our teachers spend time preparing for the arrival of students. And so this summer, for the second year in a row, Annie Kosick and her Office of Curriculum and Instruction organized a summer institute for teachers. There were 250 teachers who participated in close to, 47 different courses. Of those 47 different courses, 41 were taught by teachers for teachers. Courses on differentiated instruction, courses on culturally responsive teaching related to equity, a whole variety of courses on curriculum and related to science and development of curriculum. So we have teachers who are committed to constantly learning and expanding their knowledge base to be in the very best position to support our students. And of course, we have our administrators. The administrators around this table, I want to thank Annie and Lou. Stephanie, who you heard, received the flawless audit report. There's a lot of work that happens here in the summer. Mickey Crisafulli, who is not with us tonight, our Director of People Services. We are busy in the summer, as are the principals. The most important job we have as administrators is hiring great people and putting them in the classroom. And so our administrators worked hard at that this summer as well. We are welcoming 66 new staff. I note that 25 of those staff are educators of color. We are committed to a district that has a diversity of staff. We believe that it is through relationship that educational institutions are transformed, and the dynamic of that relationship, colleague to colleague, teacher to student, teacher to parent and family member, makes a difference in our foundational work on leading towards equity. We hired 29 new teachers this year, energetic, smart, excited people who are looking forward to making a difference in the lives of our children. 9 of those teachers, or 31%, are educators of color. This is the second year in a row we've had between 30 and 40% of our teaching staff being educators of color. We're excited and proud of that work. In my opening remarks to the faculty and staff on Thursday and the letter I sent home to students and families, I likened the start of a school year to opening an exciting new book, one where you're meeting new people, you're engaging with new ideas, and you're experiencing new adventures. And that's the way the school year really does unfold. It's a book, a story that we write together. And as I think about the title of the story for the Princeton Public Schools, at least as we're looking at the year ahead, it's about expanding our capacity. And certainly we have had lots of conversations in this room about expanding our physical capacity, and those conversations are necessary and important. We absolutely have a growing student population and a need to provide those that increased enrollment, those increased number of students with new space. But that's not the only way in which we look to expand our capacity, because schools are, they're not buildings, they're not spaces, they're ultimately the people in them, and they're given life by the people in them, and we can never forget that. And so as we think about expanding our capacity as a district, as I think about the hope and optimism that I have about the year ahead, it's really about expanding our capacity to care and to learn and to lead. I love this quote from Rita Pearson, who talks about every child deserves a champion. In a district focused on equity, we no longer want to be talking about our children at risk. We want to be talking about our children of promise. We want those relationships that uphold every child, that get to know every child as a person and as a learner, so that we can differentiate our instruction, so that we can incorporate into our teaching their culture, their ideas, their interests, their learning preferences. And so that is part of our work. To care, to learn, to lead. And there is no group that does more to emphasize this focus on care and to make sure that our students feel cared about than our counselors, our school counselors. And so we begin this year and we begin this evening with a quick presentation from Christina Donovan, who is our supervisor of school counseling. When we talk about care, it is the foundation of learning. Students do not care what you know until they know that you care. And so we are grateful for the care that the counselors create within our schools, for the learning that happens, and for the leadership that the counselors and Christina have shown in having a vision for school counseling that goes beyond what you or I may have experienced when we were in school. So I'm delighted to have Christina lead off tonight and talk about that vision, and I invite her to talk us through. So Christina, there you are.
That is what I was looking for.
Press that to
Great.
move forward.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Superintendent. Thank you so much, Board of Education members, for inviting me this evening, and of course, members of the public for being here and showing your support of Princeton Public Schools. It is my absolute honor to serve as the Supervisor of School Counseling Services. I was fortunate enough to be a school counselor here myself. One of my former students happens to be sitting around this table, so a shout out to Sam, congratulations. And really, part of the reason I mention that is everything that I do and everything that I think about and everything that my department tries to focus on and grow from is student-centered, making sure that students know that the education that we're providing is only successful when we're supporting your emotional, social, academic, and personal needs. So we really try to focus everything around those students and their families. So this year, I was asked to speak a little bit about programming that we added this year. One of the things that I'm really proud of are the elementary parent chats. So I heard this amazing story about how when you look at students and you look at individuals later in life and maybe they've had some trouble, that really some of those lessons could be learned at much earlier stages. But I myself am a parent, and I know that when my child is in kindergarten, I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. And so it's really, really helpful to have other parents and professionals to talk through different issues, changing issues, things that maybe our parents didn't deal with, like social media, Facebook, Instagram. Wait, those were like 10 years ago. Whatever the most current programming are. And so that we can have these open and honest conversations and really bring the families into the school, because I believe that a strong community of family, student, teachers, and counselors are how we're really going to support our student population. Another area that we focused this year was our middle school advisory. Mr. Burr spearheaded an advisory program with the thought of every single child known. So again, trying to align with Superintendent Cochran's vision of every child having a safe adult in the building that they can speak to. So that was successful, and we are rolling that out again this year. At the high school, we actually focused on a bunch of different initiatives, focusing primarily on our 9th grade class as they transition to high school and all that that brings with it, as well as all of our new parents. So I'm looking at my notes for everything that we did. Every single 9th grader that came to orientation met with their school counselor before school even started. Counselors go into every single last year English class, this year history class to introduce themselves and share information related to counseling services, suicide help prevention lines, as well as other helplines and text lines to help support them. We ran parent chats for both new parents and for our 9th grade parents. I thought about the fact that we get all this information as they're registering students in 8th grade, and then 6 months later, their child's in the middle of 9th grade, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know to ask that question. So we decided to invite all those parents and say, come in, ask your questions. It's an open forum. Myself and different counselors are going to sit here, listen to you, take your concerns, and try to do better next year. In addition to that, the PTO has been fantastic and worked with us on multiple kickoff events over this summer for the same kind of concept, that a parent may have just immigrated here from a different country, gets off the airplane and wants to register their child in school. The way that we used to handle that is we'd say, that's great, let's register, and now pick all your classes, and also you might have to take a placement test. They're like, wait, what? So now we do the registration process, and then they're invited to a kickoff event where they get student-led tours of our entire building. They have one-on-one time with their school counselor, and they receive a presentation about all of our different services that we offer at the high school. And then last but not least, we also started a mental health committee who we have members from here, and we're looking toward kicking off an event at Back to School Night this evening, which we're really excited about. But as I say in my notes, we can always improve and we can always do more. So that introduces me to my summer curriculum team. In the elementary school, it was Ben Samara. For the middle school, it was Adam Rothschild. And at the high school, it was Paolo Velasco. So I'd like to thank those 3 members for working diligently over this summer to revise and look at our curriculum to try to ensure that we're providing comprehensive school counseling programming for all grade levels K through 12. So in 2014, when I was a school counselor, we wrote curriculum that aligned with the ASCA national standards. So for those that don't know, that's the American School Counselor Association. It's basically the gold standard for school counseling. Notice I don't use the terminology guidance counseling. So when we think back to the vocational roots of what counseling services were, they originally were designed to help support students with primarily academic and vocational pursuits. So if you're looking to become this, then you would have to do A, B, and C. It has greatly evolved since that first definition kind of was defined. And now school counselors really do address all of the social emotional needs of our students. They are licensed school counselors, so they are not certificated like a teacher. They have an actual counseling license that requires 1,000 hours of counseling before they're even licensed. I think that that's something really important to highlight when we think about all of the incredible work that we can do going forward. So we believe that school counseling is essential and integral part of student achievement, and that really that programming is most effective when every single student is able to meet with their school counselor and receive some sort of school counseling programming. So again, as I said, the American School Counselor Association standards are the gold standard of school counseling. So they provide guidance related to individual counseling, group counseling, push-in lessons, and a variety of topics as well. So I'd like to read what we came up with as our belief statements. The school counselors believe all students have dignity, worth, and the ability to learn. All students have the right to participate in the school counseling program. All students' ethnic, cultural, racial differences and special needs are considered in planning and implementation of the school counseling programming. All students, K through 12, should have access to a full-time, state-certified counselor holding a master's degree. All students and parents are actively engaged and responsible for monitoring and collaborating in school progress with the aid of their school counselors. So I wanted to show kind of an overview of the services that are provided. So we look at them in tiers. Tier 1 services are your direct and indirect services. Now, if you talk to my school counseling team right now who've been working 24 hours on schedules, they would tell you that Tier 1 is 100% of the time. But that's just right now. So Tier 1 services are things like that, helping with the schedule, going into classrooms and talking about programming, maybe introducing them to a vocational program or a new system that we have like Power School Learning or working with Naviance. So that's kind of your Tier 1 advising. Then you have Tier 2 services, which are our more responsive services. That's when a student's not having such a great day, or as I required all of my school counselors to do, it's when we run group. So myself as a school counselor, I ran a grief and loss group, a 9th grade freshman transition group, a group of divorced students, and all of our counselors are now running groups as well. We've had everything from groups being run in Spanish to help with transition. We have a Asian American group that was formated from feedback from the parents and students in the community, and we're constantly looking to grow that programming. So that's your Tier 2 services. And then finally, we have Tier 3 services. So those are our crisis intervention and long-term counseling referrals. And again, I say referrals because we're really trying to meet with that home school partnership where we're ensuring that students are receiving the appropriate level of care. And that goes back to why we're trying to do some more preventative measures, such as going into all classrooms to meet with all students and to give them that information up front. So the curriculum piece. So we thought about this as a month-to-month guide. We looked at months and natural themes. We followed ASCA standards as well as our current lesson plans. So we looked at it very similar to what you would do in like a history classroom or a math classroom, but applied it to the school counseling model. So we had essential questions. What do I want the student to walk away with? And then the most important piece too is assessment. Is what we're doing as effective as we think? And if not, I really don't have an ego when it comes to working with students. We can do better and we will do better. So here's some examples of what my school counseling team put together. So here's an example at the elementary level. So we looked at September. We tied it to an ASCA standard. So it was friendship and kindness was the theme. We then tied it to the ASCA standard of interpersonal skills. We had an objective, an activity, and then an assessment. So this is being provided to all of our school counselors, again, for that equity piece, so that no matter what school that you attend, you'll be able to see these common themes through different activities for students. At the middle school, I gave the example of our December, which is diversity, and the focus on group work, which I think is really important. And again, how do we recognize and celebrate the diverse students that we have at JW? And then the activity that was given as an example, based on, I think it was grade 6, is the Mix It Up Day. And finally, at the high school. And this is trying to show the breadth too. So we talked about friendship and kindness, we talked about diversity, and then here at the high school, I gave the example in February of career and strengths awareness. So we have career plans, we have a career fair, we had a very successful alumni panel event this year that we are now going to tie into our career fair, and then we have a survey to make sure, again, that we are meeting the needs of our students. I really like this one too because this was our concept of redefining success, and what does that really mean for our student body? Now, it sounds like we're doing everything just perfect, but we can always do better. So we are going to program evaluation this year. I'm really, really excited to work with my team to really try to enhance our data-driven programming, visit neighboring schools that have hit the ASCA Gold Standard of RAMP certification, which is the highest level of certification you can receive as a K-12 school counseling department, and really try to learn and grow from other districts that are implementing comprehensive school counseling. So in conclusion, I think that program evaluation is really an important way to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our students, of our families, of our teachers, administrators, and the entire school community. So I think it's really important that we are constantly looking and revising. One of the most important pieces for me is that research suggests that students that are not feeling well are not optimal learners. And so when we think about the entire student, all pieces of them, we want to make sure that they are living in kind of their optimal space, and that without that social emotional functioning, it is really hard to achieve academics. So we tie our piece very, very strongly to the academic mission as well. And that's it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, Well, great job. Thank
Hi,
you for coming.
thank you.
I know that it's the first day of school for you tomorrow as
Tomorrow.
well, so we apologize for the poor timing.
No problem.
So I guess the district's been, we're very lucky to have you. I think you're doing a great job. In the past 2 years, we've had a suicide a year. One was a 9th grader. The boy last year was new to the district. And so I guess I'd appreciate if you could tell the board what you're doing, because I know we've had discussions about how important it is to us that, that we do our best that doesn't happen, but also what are we doing differently to make that transition smoother?
Right. So thank you. That's a really good question. Clearly, in my role, it's something that we think about all the time. I think a big part of that, and with the help of the mental health committee that was formed this year, is we're really looking to make sure that people are aware of the signs. We are trying to make sure that information is connected between not just the school, but also with the parents. Sometimes it's hard. It comes from a place of fear, right? Like I always say, I have children myself. To think that your child is not well is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to destigmatize that through conversation, open, honest dialogue, to say, it's okay. If you don't feel well, please tell someone, because that can get better. Additionally to that, for just direct intervention services, we're providing the different helplines in every single class in the first 2 weeks of school. We're trying to redesign, too, and we're thinking about some sort of system in which a student can make a referral or share that information and maybe not feel like they have to necessarily come down right to the office. So we want to bring the counseling to them as well. And we can do that through different small groups. I'm really playing with the idea, and I want to look at the research a little bit more about how much we can use technology to help us in that piece as well. I was looking at the Columbia survey, which has the only longitudinal survey data on what they call like layperson suicide assessment. It uses just very non-clinical language to talk about these things. And again, all with the idea of trying to destigmatize it as much as possible. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're doing great with the children and the parents. Our children probably spend as much or more time with their teachers and coaches than they do with their parents, given their busy schedules during the school year. Are we doing any more with our teachers in helping them not just recognize, because they're with our children every day, mm-hmm. but not just recognize, but to know what is the appropriate thing to do? What, when that flag is raised, are we doing something different? Are we doing something new?
So we did bring in a specialist in that area last year to work with our teaching staff, and that was at all grade levels. In addition to that, we do have our mandatory training as well, but I understand what you're asking about the referral piece. So that goes back to my concept of the Columbia Suicide Assessment. If we implement that, which is my goal by the end of this year, that all teachers will receive, like I said, like layperson training, as well as parents, students, and not just, I think of it outside of that too. If you think about how much time a student may spend in school, it might not just be their direct teacher. It could be the custodian. It could be the cafeteria worker who all of a sudden notices that the kid that came in every single day is now not sitting with the same group of friends and is by themselves. So I really want everybody trained in it. I do feel that it's all of our responsibilities to look after the children in this district. So those are just some of our initial thoughts. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Christina. As Chair of Student Achievement, you have come many times to our meetings. We will keep asking you to come because the work of working with our students, as has been said, is the most important work of this district. Just an anecdote, I'm a parent at John Witherspoon and Community Park. I attended Christina's one of her parent chats at CP, and you created a space for parents, K-5, some didn't know one another, to come and ask questions of a professional and just be together. And that provided, as we care for our students, it's really important to provide those opportunities to parents. So thank you for doing it. I think I told you I walked away with with some things I learned myself, and I appreciate all that you're looking to do in the year ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, Christina, I've been to a bunch of the programs that you've offered, and I think they are great. And like you said, communication is just getting them out there and letting all the parents know. And I know you're going to look at different times to do them, which I think is really wonderful also, because you never know when people can come. But appreciate all the excitement and energy that you're bringing, and for the students. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina, I also want to thank you on behalf of community for the care and attention that you've brought to so many important issues. I just want to also ask whether it's been noted that our district is particularly aware of wellness concerns and the work to be done, and wondered whether there's anything that you're finding surprising in what you're hearing from students or parents about what the sources of stress are for them.
That's a good question. I hate to say it. I guess not really surprising. Maybe it's a little bit more heightened. I want to say through my education, I've learned a lot more. So when I first thought of something like, I'll give a quick example of like social media. So I'm like, okay, just turn off the phone and it's not a big deal. So then you think about a student who maybe isn't feeling so great, who doesn't have a lot of friends. And I always tell the story, if you've come to my parent chats, you've heard it, where I think about it. If I wasn't invited to a party on a Friday night, I would go home, I'd have pizza with my parents, I'd probably watch, I don't know, what do we used to watch, like LA Law. And then, right, like, and then I would go to bed, and like by the time Monday came, I wouldn't even have thought about it. I didn't know that I missed a party, that I wasn't invited, that I was excluded. Our students today, by 6:01 p.m., there's 5 Snapchats, and there are these. So for me, I would say if anything was surprising was really feeling that impact and understanding how that means that your homes might not be as safe as they used to be, and that students that used to have that kind of shelter and that break may not have that anymore. And so there's so much beauty in the fact that we have access to so much information. There's also a little bit of a dark side to it too. So I would say that's probably the thing that I've really in the last couple of years learned more and more about, and really I've been thoughtful of it and how we can address it as a community.
Thank you. I also appreciate all the things you've been doing, and I know I heard when you first came, I was on the PTOC, and I heard you speak, and when you assumed your position, I was so pleased, and I'm so happy to hear all the things that you're working on.
Thank you.
I just had a question, something like the middle school advisory program. I think it's wonderful, and my own son is participating, and I'm wondering, as you kind of create these spaces where our children are coming into contact more frequently with the adults in the building, and hopefully establishing connections, how are we getting feedback from the kids that it's working? So when we say, yeah, we think we had a great year last year, we think it worked well, how do we know how the kids are feeling about it?
Right, so that's a great question. And we did ask for their feedback. There was a survey that we worked with the kids. And I think for this year, especially because we piloted it last year, that it's going to be really important for us to gather those different data points. We're also using our school counselors to help provide some counseling context and some different activities to help support students in case things come up. So that kind of goes back to your point of like, if this information is shared during even a community period, then what do we do with that information? What's the appropriate way to share it? But I believe in a continuous feedback loop. So trying to make sure that we are meeting those students' needs and then adjusting as necessary from there. In addition to that, something that I didn't mention before, we'll be bringing the parent chats to the middle school level as well, so that we can kind of have that open communication. You know, I can just imagine sending your child to middle school and thinking, uh-oh, now the communications ended. Like we had this wonderful, amazing elementary experience, and now my child doesn't even want me to stand next to them as they're walking in 6th grade. So I think it's really important that we also bring those conversations to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade parents. And then we can get feedback from them too, because they may hear things. It's amazing how much information you get driving your kid to soccer. So then you can share that with us and we can get better.
Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Thank you for all that you do. I have a question about cultural competence of the counseling staff. You know, our strength is our diversity, and sometimes it's challenging to meet kids where they are. And you talked about how you changed some of your procedures based on when people came to Princeton from another country. How do you deal with kids who have been here for a long time, who have struggled with having somebody understand the challenges of having a different socioeconomic status or different racial background, a different cultural background? And is that reflected in the counseling staff?
So I think that's a wonderful point. As Steve had mentioned earlier today, this evening, we had a diversity initiative, and I was very thoughtful of that in both our hiring practices and in what areas that I wanted to support and develop. So again, you guys probably hear me say it over and over and over again. I believe that we can always do better. So I think providing very good professional development to our school counseling staff in cultural competency, allowing my staff to say to me, maybe I need some extra help in this area. Additionally, we ran 2 cultural central groups this school year. Mr. Velasco ran a group entirely in Spanish to help connect that population, and Naperna Shaw and Paul Song ran a group for our Asian American families, and we're looking to expand that programming as well. From the socioeconomic perspective, I've been talking with different community members to try to bring counseling out into the community as well. I think that's a key component too. If you think about a school system as perhaps there's some historical significance where a family doesn't feel comfortable coming into the building, that we need to make sure that those services are still being, affecting our students. So bringing it out into different community centers or working with community partnerships to try to increase that, all at the same time increasing our professional development for cultural competence. Thank you. Okay. Senior sunrise at 7 a.m. Thank you.
Christina, thank you so much. Let me say a few quick words. Just I'll click through all of Christina's references here. I'm sure she's read every one of those, and she is not just Christina, she's Dr. Donovan. Because I did want to highlight just some quick examples which have actually already been mentioned in terms of other ways that we're expanding care and learning and leadership in the Princeton Public Schools in the coming year. One is the later start time, which Mr. Sullivan mentioned at the outset of our meeting, and I really want to thank the board for its help to make that a possibility. We are leading in the state in being able to offer that opportunity to our students of aligning their schedule with the biology of their brains. So they are awake and alert at 8:20 when they are coming to school. A new schedule at the high school next year that will allow longer periods of time for more in-depth learning, that will have built-in breaks, periods, 2 periods every six days, where students can meet with teachers informally, where they can gather together for club activities, those kinds of things. The advisory groups at JW were already mentioned. Advisory is where an adult meets with a smaller group of students, maybe 10, 12 students, and forms a relationship with them. They meet once a week. They talk about issues of relevance to them. They develop that connection, and that lasts throughout the year. We piloted the program in the spring with our 6th and 7th graders. Next year, we will be, this coming year, starting tomorrow, we will begin the program 6, 7, and 8, and throughout the full year. So we're eager to see the benefits of that research-based program. And then finally, I mentioned the equity teams at every building. We had training this past week, August 28th and 29th. Marceline DeBose, who did our equity audit, was here working with more than 50 staff representing every single school. We had administrators, teachers, some staff who were there. So each building will have an equity team, and they will be a source of understanding regarding individual and institutional racism. They will be providing staff development for their colleagues. They'll be a source of informal counsel to students and to staff as well. So there will be ongoing training for those teams throughout this year and into future years. But that is one of the fundamental recommendations that came out of our equity audit, which we talked about this summer. People can find that online, but it goes back to that importance of relationship as the sort of the purpose, the foundation of what we do in schools. So those are just some examples of the care, the learning, and the leading that's taking place in the Princeton Public Schools. And with that,
great, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you're doing to make things better. I mean, we really appreciate your leadership in all this. It's been a terrific couple of years now. I don't know how long. Has it been 3 years yet? Has it been more than that? 4 or 5? Yeah, time flies. But you've done a fantastic job. Things are so much different now that you're here, and so thanks to you, thanks to the administrators and all the teachers who are working so hard to make this happen. it's really heartwarming to see and satisfying, I think, to all of us who's been working on this a long time. So thank you very much. Okay, and with that, we're going to turn to our public comment. It says 15 minutes, but we had over 31 people sign up for public comment. And so, as many of you know, we limit public comment to so that we can continue to run the rest of our meeting. So we will ask that if each speaker keeps time to 2 minutes, then we will take an hour to do the public comment. So